Are you getting the best deal on your new home? Hey, it's Les with the Les Walden Real Estate team, and that's a question that came up the other day. I was working with a buyer last week, and we started talking about the best deal we could get for them. And so I asked them a few questions, and the few questions started like this. Well, what's better for you? Getting a few $1,000s off the price of the house up front, or maybe your payment being a couple $100s less on a monthly basis? The next question I asked was, how long did they think they would be living in that particular home? And then I went on to ask this, did they think that they could be disciplined enough to make a higher payment on a monthly basis throughout the life of their loan? And, they start answering these questions. And then the last one I asked them was, did they ever see a day that this home might become a rental home? Now this couple was, I believe it was their second home they'd ever bought in their life. And so these questions were something they had to think about, and we certainly talked about those questions. So I asked them to go with me on this little exercise, and they said, sure, we'll do this with you. I said, so, okay, the first scenario is this. So first, let's assume we negotiate with this seller and we get the seller to drop the price by $10,000 off of their asking price. And I said, would you agree that that was a pretty good negotiation? They absolutely said yes, that would be a great negotiation to get 10 grand off the price up front. So the next thing I said, well then let's assume that we're going to borrow, which they're going to borrow about $400,000 to complete that purchase. And on that particular day, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage rate on a conventional loan was 6 5/8% interest, right? On a 30-year fixed rate on a conventional loan, that particular day it was 6 5/8. So their principal payment, if we were able to get all that stuff to come together, they borrowed $400,000, we were able to get the buyer to come down 10 grand off of their price. Their principal and interest payment on that loan was going to be $2,569 a month. So they followed all that. That was where we thought we were going to be. So I said, so now let's look at another scenario, and I just want to put this out there. So it's the same home, the same seller. And instead of negotiating the purchase price down by $10,000, let's pay the seller the full asking price and then ask for $10,000 in closing cost assistance so that the seller would pay $10,000 towards the buyer's closing costs. That would be the same money in the seller's pocket, right? We negotiated them on the first deal down $10,000. This time we're paying them the full asking price, but asking them to pay $10,000 towards our closing expenses. Now we're going to use that $10,000 that the seller's agreeing to pay towards our closing costs to buy down our interest rate. Right? We're going to buy that interest rate down. So on that particular day, the $10,000 bought the 30-year fixed rate mortgage down to 5.5%. So just a shade over 1% down. And that was their rate, right? For the next 30 years, 5.5% interest for the next 30 years. So now all of a sudden, the principal and interest payment becomes $2,271 a month, or a savings of $298 a month. So I went back to my questions. I said, let's look at them. So I said, they told me when I asked the question, what would be better, to get $10,000 off the price for you, or your monthly payment, the money you got to spend each month being lower? And they said, well, the money we got to spend each month being lower. So now we're saving $298 a month off of their payment. They liked that a whole lot when we looked at that number. They said how long they would be in the house. Their answer was about 5 years. Well, then they started making money. If you do the calculations, saving $298 a month, when would they start making money, right? And they started making money at 33 and a half months. So just shy of 3 years. So if they stayed in the home for 5 years, they would have put $7,897 back in their pocket of not paying that interest payment monthly, right? If they stayed in it 5 years. Now, this was the real cool thing. Right now, the average home buyer stays in their home for 12 years. So if we run the numbers for that long, they saved almost $76,000 in payment. So now by paying full price, getting $10,000 in interest, they have now saved, if they stay in the home 12 years, over $75,000 out of their pocket in monthly payments. That's quite a bit. So then I asked, well, did you think you could pay a little extra each month on your monthly payment? Did they have the discipline to do that? They said yes. So I said, well, that's really cool too. So let's just assume we got the $10,000, we bought the rate down, the $298 extra. You went ahead and paid that towards the mortgage every month. So you were going to make the payment that you thought you were going to pay anyway. Well, the cool part there is if you stayed in this home for the rest of your life, you're going to pay that 30-year mortgage off in about 23 years. You saved 7 years. That's well over $100,000 in saved interest if you were to do that. So let's just say the last question was, did they ever see this property becoming a rental property? And they said, well, maybe. I mean, that is one of the best ways to build wealth, right? Is to own real estate. If you own real estate, your net worth is typically astronomically higher than somebody that just rents all the time. So they said possibly it could become. Well, it's a whole lot easier to show a positive cash flow each month, right? So that your rent is more than your payment if that payment's lower. So again, a positive from buying that interest rate down. So the bottom line is really this. If you work with an agent at the Les Walden Real Estate Team, we'll help you figure out the best way to structure your deal so that you are getting the best deal on your new home. So if you want to figure that out, reach out to us. You can call us, message us, or just stop by the office, and we would love to help you out.